They haven't got a clue about any of this superstructure of other intelligences that are not only made them, but are engineering the whole planet and probably have underground facilities right now on Mars, which maybe we've discovered. Maybe we are on Mars collaborating with astroalbuses right now. And that it's not science fiction. The royal bloodlines down to Queen Elizabeth and the new little baby boy, they are what the original Syrians who ran into trouble, who had to escape Mars, who get to Earth, find it's very difficult to live here the way they were made, and they've got to transfer their civilization onto something that will sustain, that the bloodline issue that we've run into in abductions, the bloodline issue of the Merovingians moving into Europe, the bloodline issues behind Illuminati. That was a word I always have tried to stay away from, and suddenly in the Lieutenant Colonel, the Air Force Lieutenant Colonel that Anthony has interviewed and is saying that Astro Albus in his briefing was translated as Illumini or white. The Illuminati in this definition, and as far as Anthony Sanchez is concerned, the colonel was stressing the Illuminati is the bloodline of the Astro Albus on this planet trying to sustain an elite Astro Albus control through royal bloodlines in the barter system. Right now in 2014, 1% of this planet is running, manipulating, and controlling 99%. And the rest of us wonder what's wrong with this picture. So I personally feel that Homo sapien deserves to know what we really are. Homo sapien deserves to know if we're being replaced. And for some reason, none of this scares me. I think I feel anger. And at the same time I feel anger, I also feel a great sorrow. They are both in me equal. Long ago, when I was working on Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2, and I was talking with Andreessen about the Andreessen affair and all of her interactions with a variety of ETs, and we were at a lunch, and Ken Ring, who had written, I think it was called Moving Toward Omega, and it was about his parallel of how similar near-death experiences in the abduction syndrome were. The characteristics of what was happening to human beings in NDEs and in abductions were so similar. And as we were sitting there, and Betty Andreessen was across from me, she said, and she started pounding. She's not a person who is at all violent. She's wonderful. But she felt so passionately. She said, Linda, it's in our very blood, the key. She said, the blood is the key. And she couldn't articulate, because so many people in the abduction syndrome are shown holographic, three-dimensional education, where they are shown, they've been shown a lot of this, actually, the more I think about it looking back, but humans have not had any template. No one has ever given us anything in which we could understand the strange evolutionary life on this planet in which Homo sapiens sapien feels, I believe, strangeness or strangerness on this planet. Humans are having such a hard time staying connected with each other. Why suddenly in this 21st century has the world been reduced to 3 by 5 inch glass screens? I don't want one. I don't ever want one. I feel that what has happened with the iPhone and the digital, even though I am trying to work with earth files in the computer, that something has now made it so much easier to communicate with, control, and monitor humanity. So what do we want to be? What do we want to be? We have grown up in a country that says that we are a democracy founded of and by and for the people. And we're living on a planet that is controlled by 1% of the population, which is probably not even human, is probably reptilian, and they have a control on the planet that we have not even had acknowledged as possibly even being a reality in the universe. We are so disconnected. We are living on a concocted planet that is serving as a pharmacy. This is a pharmacy for other life forms. Humans need pharmaceutical help of a nature in truth. Maybe if we knew all of this for real, maybe if we had a government that had the press conference of all centuries, we're just going to say it and let the chips fall where they may. I absolutely think that the current Pope in Rome could stand up next to that president and go like this, because all of this is about life forms in this 13.8 billion year universe that must have hundreds of millions of planets with life. For this Earth to keep going forward in the 21st century, where an Air Force colonel that I know told a Navy ensign he had been exposed to UFOs, ETs, photos. This is another big long story, but he was in Space Command in Washington, D.C. This happened in 98. And the space commander, because he's got this young Navy guy who has been exposed to UFOs and ETs and photos, and he's been hurt, and other people have been hurt because they had an accident and they were exposed to this, and they really, really get squashed. And the Space Command guy is talking to this one because the four-star space commander wants to know what they saw, because the four-star commander does not have special access to the photos of extraterrestrials that are hidden by a tiny few. Imagine this. So you get the commander of a unit in Washington, D.C., who brings in this poor, scared, trembling Navy guy who has seen these photos and tells him, yes, yes, we call them EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities. That is at least a truthful statement. And then when the Navy ensign says to him, well, when are you going to tell the American people? And the guy answered immediately, the four-star, never, never. No one ever on this planet will know, because religions will collapse, the Wall Street will collapse, nations will collapse. You're right. Wall Street's always up there. And you stand back from this. This is insanity. We're living on an insane, concocted, black-controlled planet to keep us from knowing that there's other life in the universe that may have medical problems, and that in those medical problems we could help. And if we could help and have a straightforward, in the public relationship with other life forms that have all these abilities, then we wouldn't need fossil fuels. We would probably be able to have energy that would come out of holding a rod like Tesla wanted to do, and you would get energy from the electromagnetic grid. That we are being kept almost like slaves in a cave with a fire, while 1% of the planet continues to get everything that it needs, even for its extraterrestrial needs, while others are being killed, and hybrids are being killed, like Rachel, because they become a threat of the truth. They probably want to take me out. They probably want to take a bunch of people out. And I just simply cannot accept that I am living on a planet with 7 billion beings and 1% is going to have the final word on what happens in the rest of this whatever future there is. There is one other piece, and I'll be happy to take your questions, but you need to hear this. 1986, a man comes up from White Sands, seeks me out because of my work. We sit down at a table. I've never seen him before or since. I've had a lot of one-on-one meetings where people will come, they say, I can talk with you for a little bit, but you can't have my real name, you can't do this. And he said, I want you to know that I work with a physicist who says that he has been coming and going on a regular basis to an underground facility on Mars. He said, this isn't Star Trek, this isn't Hollywood. He said, this is for real. And he said, when I've talked with this physicist about why it is that the humans on this planet are being left in the dark continually about what we are working on in bits and pieces in compartmentalized information around extraterrestrial back engineering of technology that our government so badly wants and is willing to do a treaty that says, yes, you can abduct some of our people for medical research. Yes, you can mutilate animals. We will keep it a secret. He said the physicist answer to his question, what is going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? And the physicist said, the government's perception on the population on this planet is that we are like grasshoppers before the winter. And when I hear things like that, I never feel fear, I feel rage. Something so unfair is happening, and yet. The Eben hybrid tried to give Marissa back her eyesight. Jacques Vallée told the famous story of the light that came onto the balcony, the second story in France. It was a doctor, he had smashed his leg in some accident, and he stood there and a beam came out. He was automatically healed. Down in South America, there was a famous case from the 50s of a man who was outside and all of a sudden up came a craft and down came a beam. Same beam technology that takes animals up and down to mutilate them. In this case, they took this man, he was 70-some years old. He had I think 1 or 2 teeth. His hair had fallen out. The beam comes down around this man. The beam retracts, and he's now back in his 20s. Today, where it seemed preposterous then, today we can see that is time manipulation. It also could be DNA resurrection, reconstitution with frequencies, that all of this is possible. And that the 1% have access to it. I'm really not on a political harangue. I am just a humble reporter who has tried very hard to understand from 1979 who or what was mutilating all of these animals in a way that was not comprehensible to humans. And it has taken me all these paths up to this day and through all of these extraordinarily difficult subjects. And as I stand here thinking, whoever is president of the United States is not in control of anything. That what has happened, not just in this country, but I'm sure it's the same in England and Australia and New Zealand and Canada and Germany and all, except Russia. Putin, I think, is in charge. when you realize that the planet now it's a silent revolution in which the intelligence agencies now run the world. Anybody who thinks otherwise is kidding themselves. The intelligence agencies, counterintelligence side, and intel in World War II are what largely got us through that war. They are some of the brightest and best there is. That's why they can do that work. They might think the time has come in this transition that we all feel it. I think everybody feels. This is not like the sense of Christmas coming. This is a feeling that something so huge, so life-changing is going to occur in our lifetime that you can feel it palpably. But is what's coming going to be under the control of humans, hybrids, clones, full-bore prime intelligences, or the divine field? And it's the last that I count on. I said it in my lecture, I said it in the first workshop, I couldn't mean it more. I told you this is heavy duty, this is hard going, but at my core and your core, there is a soul. And unless we're giving lip service, and there's too much of that now in this Kardashianized world, everything is for show and lip service and PR and all of that. But if you are going to the heart of your soul and your mind and your spirit, and you're not giving lip service, the words "you really don't die" should have a meaning. That the book Proof of Heaven by the neurosurgeon Eben Alexander should be a part of your mind, body, and spirit. That when the extraterrestrial told the captain at Los Alamos in the 1949 to 52 period, reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of the universe. And also said there is a devil, and that the Ebens are as afraid of the devil as we are, without any explanation. The boxes here of this chess game, all the matter worlds fall to me in the same category, and that is matter and life trying to sustain itself in the matter worlds. But the soul source is not the matter worlds. The animus of your container, the Eben's container, the Astro Albus's container, the alligator's container, I don't care what the container form is, that life force, that animus that clearly disappears like that at death, has a different source. And I think that source is a divine field. And I think that divine field is the alpha to the omega, the infinite that has no entropy in it, has no destruction in it, has no death in it. And I think that divine field is responsible for the creation of the matter worlds that we do not understand. We don't understand why there should be a pitting of life and death, hatred and love, light and darkness. It is at the core of my own confusion to be in a universe and on a planet where life must eat other life to survive. Maybe there is a universe where that doesn't happen. Maybe that's a part of the whole scheme. The divine field is trying and struggling to work something out about what is allowable to do with life itself. And that the end goal is that every soul that has been through every possible universe will choose to go back to the divine field. And then that would be the end of all the matter worlds. Meanwhile, We're on a planet in a solar system that is completely different than we have been taught. And if this transition toward what is coming is part of what we are discussing right here today, something has to crack this open. I cannot believe that we're going to continue through the 21st century killing life at a pace on this earth that is the sixth mass extinction, taking water for golf courses when food needs water, that the bass-ackwards, upside-down priorities of the 1% that hold the ownership of the planet right now will prevail. I cannot believe that the divine field is going to allow the 1% marauding the 99% to continue. Therefore, what may be coming may have a source in the divine field. Whatever it is, for those of you who think back at this morning and here, I think I have tried to show you at least some of the real pieces of real truths about a very complicated universe in which other life running for its life, for reasons unknown, with enemies unknown, have ended up being why we are here on Earth. We humans and hybrids, we are defined now, all of us as hybrids, all of us as having extraterrestrial genes. We are all on this earth as a life because of other life in the universe coming here. If you all could start saying to me, if you think there's any way that what I've presented to you this morning could be presented publicly, is there any way beyond a room of people who seek it out to a Kardashianized world that doesn't care? Yes.
Hey, I mean, okay, first of all, let's give her a standing ovation. Yes. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. What time do you want to finish? It's 12 now.
Can I take it?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love you. I love you. I really do. We don't know each other, but I can feel that connection and a compassion for human beings that feel like I do, that we are a life form that is being torn apart. And that when we are in a room like this and you feel like we're not all just stumbling in ignorance, there is something that binds us that I think goes to the level of our soul. That we shouldn't be dividing ourselves as male, female. We should be together as human beings.
Thanks a lot, and it's too personal for me at this point. But I know that I want to say one thing, which is that there are so many people right now that feel so inspired because of any seriously moving and data heavy and rich presentation like yours was solicit from the kind of people that come together, two grand of us.
Yeah, and how do we do this, or how do I do this in the world without being stoned?
But, so the issue that I feel is significant, that comes back and forth to me, that it's somewhat specific, you know, and that is this thing about these conflicting values related to motives. It have to do with the extraterrestrials, which we see in their camps, you know, not being able to believe that once we get past a certain thing, that don't worry, folks, no conflict, no wars, no. We see women, you know, that may be a little naive, right? So, but I'm thinking that even when you get to the level of what remnant of the Magi that they're in, because they're not going to give up control functions.
Yeah, that's the problem, that there's been so much reinforcement at the testosterone bastard level. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you guys, but you know what I mean. There is a testosterone bastard gestalt in the defense departments of the world, and those are men. I actually feel sorry for them. They are born and raised and trained. Number one, they start like this, and there's no possibility of argument. And then they have the barter system. You'll have all the money in the titles. If you never question, you carry out these orders, and pretty soon we have, the world's being run by
And Linda, could you just repeat the question so we can get it on the DVD when you do get asked questions?
Oh, well, I was asking if there was, from the audience, if there, do people have any ideas of how I would take what I presented here and do it to more audiences? Because I think that I and others will be stoned metaphorically and literally with trying to take this information out to the public.
Yeah, that would be a great issue. I can relate to that too, but I want to keep it kind of brief because I know that, like I said, there's so many people that have a need to probably want to ask questions right now. And that is that, isn't it, don't you feel that there's a possibility that even in the current top elite, top-down management kind of level, there's still this split in the values. Because you said you're worried. You're worried about your own safety and other people's. We understand that for the reasons we know historically too.
You mean some want this out and some are just saying no?
That there's like often sort of you see two camps that conflict with each other, even on the Magi level as far as what.
I think that's true, yes. Yes, but you got to realize for 60 years at least, FDR was dealing with celestial aircraft and the Secretary of War, so it goes back actually more than 60, but if you take World War II on, it's 60 years in which everything that we have just discussed has been the actual fabric in some secret rooms. All of this has been discussed and evolving, and they are the ones that are prevailing, like the four-star who says, never, we're never going to be told the truth. They're prevailing, and I think that's wrong.
But then there's a group that feels that yes, that's not the right path, that there should be some kinds. They want to say.
Well, let's see if there's anybody else here who has any feedback to me. Yes.
Okay, I think that this is all going to get into the mainstream very soon, and that you will be able to present this to more and more people just because of the fact that I'm a flight attendant. I knew 9/11 was an inside job from day one because buildings don't fall into their own footprint in 10 seconds flat without it being a controlled demolition. And I would try to go in and talk to the pilots, and they would get up, if you were at the bar, they would get up and walk out of the room. And their eyes would glaze over, and it's just like, no, there's no way in hell that our country would have done that to their own citizens. And now I can sit down and talk to them, and their eyes don't glaze over, and they don't get up and walk away. And I do think that if the mass consciousness, the more of us that attend this and start researching and finding out the truth, it adds that truth to the mass consciousness because we are all one and we are all connected, and there is going to be a great awakening.
But the issue is 9/11, I think Jim Marr's book, Inside Job, is the correct title. But, right. But the problem about it is that shows how far this government is willing to go to do and suppress anything. That's the scary part. It isn't that you guys aren't ready. It isn't that other people in all over in cities in the United States might be able to be educated if I were allowed without being evaporated. It is that the government is taking a controlling, the Patriot Act alone is the most disgusting thing that has happened, I think, in the United States. And Yeah, and when you are living and your own country is turning into a fascist police state while you are alive protesting with other people, the fascist police state is essentially the nature now of the political system of the United States. And what can the 99% of the United States do to change that? This, to me, is the crux of the problem. Where does the majority get a leverage any longer on the Astro Albus?
Isn't that the issue with Snowden? Aren't they really afraid of what Snowden can say? Not the crap about the NSA, but what he knows about aliens and their insidious...
I hope so. I mean, I think Snowden is a hero. I think he is a super patriot. I really do. He's not a traitor. He confronted this unbelievable level of superpower state. And the issue is, what does Snowden have? What does Greenwald have that they have not yet released? There was a rumor.
That's the real issue with Snowden.
And maybe Snowden will open up something and then I will be able to do this more. I don't know. Yes.
You are asking about what we can do to spread the truth more quickly.
Meaning what I've presented, I meant specifically about what I've just done in the last 3 hours, the lecture and the other workshop.
Yeah.
So I've done a combined of about 6 hours here on this weekend.
I understand.
And if I took that 6 hours out to public meetings anywhere outside of a place like Contact in the Desert, I think that literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, I would be stoned, and the government would probably want me gone.
No, I understand, but as a French, I can tell you that we have a lot of trouble to find information. A lot of information is in English, okay? French people doesn't speak English, it doesn't understand anything. It's not like German people. And what I am seeing is that, all the material that we can find is only on books or videos, and we have a big problem because even if I want to translate your work for free, I have a big issue because I have no transcription, and the base of the work for us is to have the transcription of your work. And it can be translated in Chinese, Spanish,
Right.
whatever, very easily now with the technology. But actually, I don't speak about you personally, but you in general still use the main stream, that is writing books, selling books, doing videos, and this is not good for spreading the truth. Transcription is the key.
I see. What you're saying is I have to transcribe constantly in my work from audio, and if I had somebody or some way or a company that could take everything that I was transcribing into all languages and it just went out there, that would be a how would we do that? Is anybody doing international?
I do that every day. I do that every day.
I want to talk with you guys.
Okay.
I would love to start getting more out to every country in the planet. Yes.
Wait.
Have somebody videoing you. I don't know if I need that. Everything you do, you should have somebody videoing you so you have it as a record, because you say things that might be lost, right? Unless, I mean, you have said things that are not in your books.
Yeah.
Because they came from the energy of the group, perhaps. And everything, if you have a video of it, then I mean, you...
Like going on YouTube every day.
Yes, and...
And the problem is there's only one of me, and to do the work that I do takes, 18-hour days
So
every
maybe
day.
you're ready for a team.
And yeah, I need... Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Linda. A few years ago, I invited you to Peru back in 1991, when there was a chance to contact with benevolent, physical contact extraterrestrials.
1991.
Yes, during the first UFO Congress, or maybe the second. But you said that there were not credible contactees here and there, and we didn't agree. Anyhow, I think I'm trying to strike a balance between the information you presented, which I find very interested, some of it very credible, but also that we should know that there are different kinds of extraterrestrials that have not been recognized openly, not the Anunnaki and Greys and all those.
In Peru are the tall red hairs, and the tall red hairs may be related to the tall humanoids that are blonde and black-haired in Austroables. That's the part that none of us know for sure.
Not exactly. There are, in Peru, there are human-like, oriental-like, brown skin, 6 feet tall extraterrestrials, for example. Not necessarily the tall, blonde, no.
Well, there's lots of tall red hairs in Peru.
Well, are you talking about the Paracas, craniums?
No. Up in the Andes, up in Pia Pinte, in areas where the extraterrestrials have landed and even they've had interactions with people in Pia Pinte.
I don't know Pia Pinte. I've never heard about Pia Pinte.
It's outside of Cusco, 6 hours and hairpin roads up to the top.
Okay. Well, that may be true. I'm not aware of that part. But what I'm trying to, I don't know if this is working.
I can hear you.
What I'm trying to suggest is that also Americans should go to Peru trying to find the bona fide, mentally balanced contactees that do not create UFO sects, but can actually demonstrate in a peaceful interactions with UFOs that can be filmed after an agreed upon time and place.
Okay, now,
Objectively.
just so I understand, are you saying that in Peru that you are having interactions with extraterrestrials without government interference?
Yeah, the government doesn't seem to have a clear policy in favor or against, not just in Peru, I'm
But
talking about...
what would happen if those extraterrestrials came to the United States to talk to our American public?
Actually, I have contactee friends that come to the United States, and they do have these meetings with a spacecraft that come. This is happening, for example, in Mount Shasta. It's not just Stephen Greer doing this.
But not official.
Let me finish,
It's
please.
not government to government.
You can go, let me finish. You can go to these gatherings in Mount Shasta, attended by maybe 50 or 60 Latin Americans, but no English-speaking, Anglo-speaking people, basically. Dr. Sala attended to one of these gatherings, and he witnessed the craft clearly 2 years ago. But you could go there, people could go there, people could find out that there are different kinds of extraterrestrials protecting the Earth.
All right, let me go to this lady back here.
Yeah, I've heard about that too, but you can't trust everything, right? My question is about whether your gut feeling or what you think is happening with that satanic or that scary group that is...
Yeah, the Tronoloids.
That's scaring
You couldn't say
everyone.
that they've never been depicted as satanic. They've been called dangerous, and that they camouflage themselves as blonde humans, and that they are at least 1,000 years in advance of us technologically. Satan is a whole other word and thing. So let's just say that there are these advanced insect-like ETs that Reagan was told were dangerous. Yeah. Well, I don't know whether that was also politically calculated. This is the problem. What is the reality check on the agendas?
It was the government.
Yeah. And so this is where we all are. It's very complicated, and we need reality checks, but I don't know who can give us reality checks. And I would like to be able to put this material out into a broader public, but I fear that the government is going to do something really harsh if any of us try to actually start synthesizing what I've done this weekend in Contact. Because Well, that to me is not, it doesn't count journalistically. I'm a journalist and I want my name to go on what goes out there, so I'm saying I've at least vetted some of it and I know what's going on. And maybe this is an impossible question, and it probably is for us to answer, but I think what I'm getting from all of you is that you are here because you share the same frustrations about what we are and what the truth is, and that we're living in a country that's not giving us any facts. And that is what has bonded us. The question leaving Contact in the Desert is, how do we go forward and change anything in the United States of America that would turn back to a country that actually honored of, by, and for the people, and that the government was the servant, not the dictator? And I don't have an answer to that, but I really do think that the extraterrestrial, the gigantic issue is rubbing in our faces. That we are now, after 60 years of policies of denial to keep extraterrestrial truths from us, it has corrupted and rotted and transformed this government into something that none of us like. How do we change it? I love you guys. Homo sapien deserves to know if we're being replaced. And for some reason, none of this scares me. I think I feel anger. And at the same time I feel anger, I also feel a great sorrow. They are both in me equal. Long ago, when I was working on Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2, and I was talking with Andreessen about the Andreessen affair and all of her interactions with a variety of ETs, and we were at a lunch, and Ken Ring, who had written, I think it was called Moving Toward Omega, and it was about his parallel of how similar near-death experiences in the abduction syndrome were. The characteristics of what was happening to human beings in NDEs and in abductions were so similar. And as we were sitting there, and Betty Andreessen was across from me, she said, and she started pounding. She's not a person who is at all violent. She's wonderful. But she felt so passionately. She said, Linda, it's in our very blood, the key. She said, the blood is the key. And she couldn't articulate, because so many people in the abduction line of the Astro Albus on this planet trying to sustain an elite Astro Albus control through royal bloodlines in the barter system. Right now in 2014, 1% of this planet is running, manipulating, and controlling 99%. And the rest of us wonder what's wrong with this picture. So I personally feel that Homo sapien deserves to know what we really are. They haven't got a clue about any of this superstructure of other intelligences that are not only made them, but are engineering the whole planet, and probably have underground facilities right now on Mars, which maybe we've discovered. Maybe we are on Mars collaborating with Astro Albuses right now. And that it's not science fiction. The royal bloodlines down to Queen Elizabeth and the new little baby boy, they are what the original Syrians who ran into trouble, who had to escape Mars, who get to Earth, find it's very difficult to live here the way they were made, and they've got to transfer their civilization onto something that will sustain, that the bloodline issue that we've run into in abductions, the bloodline issue of the Merovingians moving into Europe, the bloodline issues behind Illuminati. That was a word I always have tried to stay away from, and suddenly in the lieutenant colonel, the Air Force lieutenant colonel that Anthony has interviewed and is saying that Astro Albus in his briefing was translated as Illumini or white. The Illuminati in this definition, and as far as Anthony Sanchez is concerned, the colonel was stressing the Illuminati is the blood